Okay, full transparency here. You might have gotten a little bit of whiplash as we talked about water. I gotta say, we're in the news, we deal with technical issues, and that's exactly what happened. So a recap, Idaho surface waters are taking a major hit, and it is hurting farmers and what crops they can save. But that isn't all that is bringing concern. That water in Idaho doesn't just grow the crops, it also generates that electricity. The water melts and the snowpack fills the reservoirs, which spins the turbines and helps keep the lights on. It's a pretty good system, unless, of course, there isn't enough snow to make the deposit. And this year, parts of Idaho are finding out what happens when that account comes up so short. So Abby Wilt went to Swan Falls Dam to see what lower water levels mean for the power grid and for people who depend on it.
As Idaho's first hydropower plant and the oldest hydroelectric dam on the Snake River, Swan Falls Dam has been turning water into electricity for generations.
Hydropower is low cost. It's our lowest cost resource. It's very clean. It reacts very well with other resources on the grid.
But this year, the question isn't how the system works, it's how much water will be available to power it.
So when we don't have that good snowpack, we have lower flows that set in earlier, and that means that we have to really manage our hydropower resource to the best of our ability.
Hydropower from dams like this usually make up about 38% of Idaho's power per year. But this year, with a low snowpack, that means less water is going into these dams, and that could mean less power on the grid.
So Idaho had a snowpack drought, and so we actually got precipitation that was coming through in the wintertime, but the temperatures were really warm. And so we did not accumulate good snowpack in the mountains.
Idaho's snowpack this year was one of the lowest on record, meaning slower water flows and less water in the Snake River. When there's less water, that could mean less electricity. Here's how it works. When water enters a dam, it flows through large pipes called penstalks, spinning turbines that generate electricity before the water continues downstream. The more water moving through the system, the more hydropower can be produced.
Our group regularly forecasts what stream flows are going to be in the river. And so a big part of how we help out is just knowing what's coming through our system.
So in years like this, what's the solution? That's where Idaho Power's engineering leader Frank Garilio comes in. He tracks how much water is flowing through Idaho's dams and how much energy it's creating. If it's lower than usual, he says the utility has to rely on other energy sources like solar energy or natural gas plants.
If we don't have as much hydropower in a particular year, that's part of what our group is there for. We plan for that. And so if we see that we're not going to have as much water, we can do other things to set up our system.
They aren't just planning for lower flows, but also a higher demand of electricity, with Idaho growing as much as it is.
We anticipate having, similar or maybe even higher demand on our system this year, especially if we get a lot of warm temperatures this summer.
And that means while less hydropower doesn't directly correlate with higher costs for Idaho Power customers, it could increase bills slightly due to using other energy sources that cost more.
It's one of the reasons that we love hydropower, because it does help to keep our costs low in general, well below the national average. And so sometimes that does mean that we have to recoup those additional costs, primarily through the power cost adjustment. And so the following year, perhaps there will be an additional increase to recoup those costs.
But Garilio says Idahoans don't need to worry about not getting electricity, but rather watching what source they will get it from.
Again, the water is going to be lower this year, but operating under lower water conditions and having lower flows is something that we're really used to, and something that, compared to last year, we'll generate a little bit less, but we'll use it as efficiently as we can to meet those needs.
Hydropower is one of the ways that Idaho is able to keep some of the lowest electricity prices in the country, so just another reason why low snowpack is really detrimental, and we're starting to see some of those effects this year.
Yeah, it kind of seems like the same message all across the board when it just comes to water. It's limit what we've got, and then we'll see how we can get there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Abby, thank you.